Ladies and gentlemen, K Kim here. Welcome to the daily update. Hope you guys had a good day trading today. Market is up slightly, about 0.7% there on the S&P. Nasdaq led the way today. I think Nasdaq is up more than 1%, but the small caps and the banks were lagging. They are down, I think, negative 0.5% or something like that today. But welcome to the first day of trading for the third quarter of this year, and first day of the month of July, right? So let's get into it here. Let's try to figure out what had happened today and what we can expect going into tomorrow. Coming Friday, market is closed, so we'll have one more day of trading tomorrow for the week, right? Tomorrow's Thursday, so tomorrow night we will do the market update video, where I do a little bit more extensive analysis, and I'll look at some of the equity side, look at gold and Bitcoin and things like that. If you want me to look at a couple tickers, feel free to leave comment which ticker you want me to look at. I prefer not to analyze penny stocks, so kind of stay with the range of what I normally look at. Stocks like these that you see on my rotations here. Some of these stocks. So, feel free to leave the tickers there, and I'll try to cover them tomorrow on the market update video. So let's get into it real quick. So today we opened up, we gapped up here from here to here. Not a big gap up, right? Slight gap up there, but I think that gap up helped to continue to see the momentum pushing higher. We pretty much been moving sideways all day. That first hour move, that was it, and we've been just moving sideways. And so, but a lot has accomplished that you might not see just looking at the tape throughout the day today. You might think that this just was a sideways move, not a huge deal. However, we did see that long upper wick there. We did form a shooting star, gravestone doji type of candle there. What happened was there was this big gap down, and that was also a island gap down, which we've been covering almost every single video, not almost every single video last couple weeks, right? And I've been talking about how bulls need to go up and fill that gap to kill that momentum, right? We have very tiny let's call that's been filled. That's a very, very tiny let's call that this gap has been filled. We no longer have an island top anymore. I used to have my box drawn here like this one right here, but I removed that box because this area here no longer represents island top any longer, now that the price has gone up and filled that gap. So, looking at things more midterm, that's constructive, right? That's constructive. That's exactly what the buyers wanted to do. Remember, we saw a big gap down, that island gap down. Buyers were not able to fill this gap, the entirety of it here. We saw another gap up. We're not able to fill it. We saw another attempt. Buyers were not able to fill that. And from then, things became very, very hectic, which we've been covering on every single day, that it's going to be in a hectic environment. Indeed, it was hectic, right? Because buyers been pushing, pushing. There has been no follow through. There has been no traction, right? Completely different environment than what we've been in early June and May, right? where you see some move, you tend to see some follow through. You see some move, you tend to see some follow through. You see a move, you see some pullbacks, but you tend to see a follow through, especially with the big gap ups, right? Well, here was in a completely different, circumstances, completely different environment, right? Where you can see that we see a gap up. Why is that? There's maybe a little pullback, possibly continue higher. Why wasn't there a continuation? Despite the fact that we saw some big old gap up. The gap, that has been the trouble. That gap was where the selling pressure came about, right? Needed to close that gap. And ever since then, we saw another gap up. Boom, another gap up. No, another move. No. And bulls had to work hard. They needed some help with that bullish divergence on my oscillator there, and finally got up and filled this gap. And you guys know that when the gap gets filled, it does act as resistance, right? Remember this gap right here, the big gap? That gap got filled, and that level acted support for a couple of weeks or so. Right? Remember this gap, that down gap right here? There was that little down gap. That gap got filled yesterday. We hang around there for several hours. Today, it took a while. It wasn't a very confident go up and just fill that. It wasn't like that. It got up a little bit, pull back, got up a little bit, pull back, got up a little bit, pull back. And then it took it squeezed just a little bit more. Just a little bit more energy to got up and fill that gap there today. And then after that gap was filled, that level did act as resistance, which is no surprise at all. And then we did see a pullback. So pullback is fine. Fill that gap. That's a good thing in the midterm, right? So now bulls are kind of getting tired. It worked, they worked really, really hard last 3 days to come from here, 298, to all the way to 311. Worked because, and there are a lot of resistance. There's this gap area, there's falling midterm moving average. There was that horizontal pivot, which was a very, very strong level also, right? That was that pivotal level. And this was actually a very strong pivot level, and just breaking above that, they accomplished a lot. They accomplished a lot. Not to mention, so far right now, we are holding above it. Somebody asked me on Twitter that, well, don't you want to readjust it? Not at this point. Because there's a reason why. There's a reason why you don't adjust it. This is actually significant high, right? This is the high where we saw gap up, gap down, this turning into an island top. And this thing came all the way down from 314, came all the way down to 299. This is a significant lower high. The reason why I was adjusting them here and here, they weren't really significant. So remember at one point I was I had it like this, right? And then I adjusted like that, right? And then I adjusted like that because they weren't significant high because it just went up and came down, went up and came down, went up and came down, right? This one, however, is significant. Can we all agree that that's significant? They came from 314. That's from what? From here to there. Hey, that's a 5% correction. That's a significant lower high. It has some more weight than these 1% or 2% declines, right? So now this one, I'm not gonna adjust it because I need to have my downtrend resistance touch that, right? It needs to touch that. That's a significant resistance, right? So, but keep in mind that if we still do have lower highs, don't we not, right? We got the lower highs here. That's a lower high. That's a lower high, and we are in the vicinity of lower high. So we slightly got, so I don't want you to be too meticulous about this falling resistance at this point. What's more important is the overall perspective is we still have lower highs in place. Obviously, we're still in this vicinity where we don't know if it's going to continue higher or lower at this point, right? So what bulls need to do, bulls need to at least get up here to retest either 315 to 314 to neutralize downtrend that we've been seeing this short to midterm. What I mean by neutralizing it is nullifying this pressure. How? How though? How can they do that? Okay, so what is the definition of downtrend? Definition of downtrend is lower highs and lower lows, correct? Yes. So if the price gets back up to 315, and even if we see a pullback, what can we say about these highs now? They are no longer lower highs, but they are what? Equal highs. When you see an equal high or series of equal highs, it means market is preparing to base out, consolidate. You guys remember on my weekend video last Friday, we talked about this. This is how the buyers like to operate. Bulls take its time, prepare, get some good rest, wait for the right opportunity and then make its run. That's what you see a lot of times. We see an up move and then that thing pulls back. There's some volatility, but market seems to move nowhere for weeks and months. That's what happened in April and May. Remember? We talked about this in last Friday. April, May, that's what it did. That's how bulls like to absorb volatilities and then slowly cultivate either basing pattern or consolidation, some sort of continuation pattern, building that base, neutralizing that selling pressure, and then it makes a move. That's how bulls like to operate. So you kind of have to understand the characteristics of buyers and characteristics of sellers. Because a lot of times when the selling occurs, most of it is due to fear and panic. So you see some big abrupt sell-off like here and here. Fast, big sell-offs. That's how bears like to operate. They don't want to hang around. They don't have any patience. They don't want to hang around. They don't want to consolidate anything. They just want to bring it down as fast as they can, right? Because if you see these down moves, there's at the top here, there are many long drawn out consolidations. It's like that and boom, right? But if you look at the overall picture, which we talked about just on the weekend right here, right? You guys remember this? You can see that move right there and this move, right? Why there's so many up and down shenanigans, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. That's how buyers like to absorb volatility. They're kind of basically, buyers are sneaky in a way that they kind of wait around and wait until the sellers gets tired, right? Because you can see a big sell-off, and then buyers bring it up, another sell-off, buyers bring it up, another sell-off, and then after multiple days and weeks and maybe even months, sooner or later, bears are gonna get tired. And that's what creates the basement, right? It creates that bottoming, basing pattern and consolidation, right? And then once it exhausts the bears, the sellers, at that moment, at the right time, due time, buyers are going to bring it back up. This is why when you analyze the charts, the price, this is the most effective way to ascertain potential movement going forward, right? So, and which I've been doing with you guys for, this entire move since late March, right? So, what can we expect going forward tomorrow? Well, I think bulls are getting tired. We did see a cross there. We got this cross there. We got the slide. We got the cross. So now we're getting to that level where bulls are getting tired. They could have squeezed just a little bit if we see a much bigger move today, but they weren't able to like squeeze just a little bit, but this is kind of the level where generally bulls are going to get tired. Bulls are tired. That's why they pushed it, finally pushed it, and then they gave up. And then short-term bears came about, and then that's what made the price come down. I mean, think about just the way exactly to the cent where it got up and pulled back. Even today, got just right to the gap area and then pulled back. Do you really think they are all coincidence? I mean, there's so many people think like, well, you can't just read price, read tape, and look at technical analysis only, and then seriously though. Just go back. I mean, just look at what happened last 3 months. There's no way you are able to be long on fundamentals. Market went up like 50% from, March lows to June highs. 50%, 50, with horrible fundamentals. Horrible economical data. There's no way you could have traded this market successfully without technical analysis this year. Right? So I'm not saying like you should completely dispute fundamental analysis. You can incorporate both. However, whatever the fundamental data out there, it must be confirmed by the price. Do you see what I'm talking about? Okay, there is something happening, right? You think it's negative, and you come back and you say, is the price confirming that potential negative news? Or is the price ignoring it? You see what I'm saying? That's very, very important, because fundamental analysis, if you're only trading off of fundamental analysis, it's going to get you to be emotional. Meaning, okay, it's horrible. I mean, there's no economy. Economy is completely shut down, and you're emotionally driven, and it's very, very difficult for you to place a long trade unless you're scalping or day trading, right? That's why it was very, very difficult to be long in March lows and to able to add through the dips April, May, and June, right? And market rallied 50%. And that would have been such a great buying opportunity. But it was very, very difficult, right? And market never makes it easy, obviously. So going into tomorrow, bulls are tired. I think there's a good chance. And I think just the way bulls opened up this gap, it's brilliant. You know why? Because if we do see a pullback, guess what level is going to act as support? 308. Because that's a gap here. We just cover the fact that this gap got filled and then it acted as resistance. Well, when this thing comes down tomorrow and fill this gap, what do you think that's going to happen? Well, that's going to act as support, right? So I'm actually going to give you these levels, 308, 307, 306, right? So that's going to be going into tomorrow and maybe even early next week. Those are going to be the level of support. If bears bring it down, 308, fill the gap, that's the next support. Even if they continue to bring it down, march lower, what's going to happen is I got my short-term moving average, we got moving average clusters, all of those levels going to act as support. So I suspect we will see a pullback tomorrow, early trading hours, and then come and fill this gap and potentially bounce off of that. Unless... I have to say that because this hasn't been the environment where the market is, performing surprises. Unless, remember, we got just a little bit more energy here. Sometimes bears or bulls cannot utilize it. Sometimes is gonna come back down. Sometimes it can cross right back up depending on how it opens tomorrow morning. If we open strong, we see a gap up and strong move. There is just a little bit. It's a rare chance of that happening. But remember, last several days, market has been doing the quote unquote when I called it rare probability. That's what it's been doing. You guys remember that? Last couple weeks, it's been performing surprises. So I want to mention it that there is some room here, just in case bulls just gap up and bring it up, and there is some room right here that could potentially get us 314. But I think in a more conventional, normal situations and normal climate, this setup right here, this look right here looks like it wants to come down to 308. right? Pull back 373, worst case now maybe even 306, right? And we got some of those level there. So keep that in mind. And also I want to kind of close this video with this. We've seen something like this before. You see that downtrend resistance right here on my oscillator. We broke above it and then we came back down, retested. We saw another bounce. And then what happened with the price was this. I'll show you. So this is what happened right here. So we made a move, we pulled back, and that's that. And then we saw another gap, but we just pushed a little bit higher. And that was this going back up. You see what I mean? From that downtrend resistance, prior resistance, acting as new support. So there is a chance we have this downtrend resistance. This is a likely scenario. This thing coming back down tomorrow, bouncing somewhere in this vicinity, and then going right back up. So something like this kind of makes sense going into next day or two, and then coming back up and retesting it. That's kind of what I see. Remember, we've been talking about each day, this market is going to give us little piece of information to help us to gauge what is about to come. And that's what I see happening right now. This is what is happening. So any kind of pullback will be met with some dip buying activities, and then bulls going to try to get back up here 314, 316. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. When the bulls can't go get back up here, obviously bears want to defend this, because we have to be fair at this point. This gap is filled, but we have another gap here. So this gap doesn't get filled. Bears can still make things hectic for the buyers. This gap needs to be filled for the buyers to, if they want to continue to advance in the month of July. If not, we have to keep in mind that we are still in a vicinity of lower high. So buyers are not completely out of the woods yet. I want to make sure I say that today. Buyers are not completely out of the woods yet. Buyers need to do some more work. But we got some signals here that is telling us that there's potentially a move that can provide for the buyers to neutralize this potential downtrend. That's what I was explaining in the last 20 minutes of this video, right? So tomorrow, come back for you guys for the market update video. I will look at a couple tickers. Leave on the comment which tickers you want me to look at. I can't look at 10, 15, 20, 30 tickers, so whatever I'm gonna choose, whatever you guys leave there on the comment section. So we'll go from there, right? I'll come back tomorrow. You guys enjoy your evening, and good luck trading tomorrow.